Hey, everybody, I'm David Bloom of Next TMT, and this here podcast, Next TMT Talks with Daniel Frankel, as we talk all things technology, media, and telecom on the week. This was a shortened week, but nonetheless action-packed with in and around all the turkey and Black Friday and football and other stuff. Lots to talk about. To start with, I'll just run down a little list so you kind of know what's coming. But we dive into the biggest question in Hollywood these days, which is who's buying Warner Brothers Discovery, if anybody, and for what ridiculous excessive price? Is Netflix especially bad as a possible buyer? And has Comcast figured out a way to con the Don? Also, are there other combinations of companies as either mergers and acquisitions or as some sort of smarter bundle that might represent a better way to spend a few tens of billions of dollars, just say. We also get into the conservative station groups that suddenly aren't the apple of our president's gimlet eye, and neither, it appears, is newly crowned CBS News editor-in-chief Barry Weiss, as our only president gets piggy with it. Regional and niche sports networks and probably show signs of life. And speaking of Netflix, now it has true champagne problems as we discuss the holiday rom-com of it all. Apparently asking Chat GPT to help you kill yourself violates OpenAI's terms of service. Who knew? Talk about being terminated for violations. Finally, will electricity be the new extraordinary pain point for consumers feeling inflation's crunch? Does that also violate OpenAI's terms of service, since they're kind of the reason why the rates are going up? Anyway, let's get started with this whole Warner Brothers Discovery thing, Daniel, because that is occupying the attention of a lot of folks in Los Angeles between the wacky stuff Uncle Fred said and whether the turkey was indeed as dry as the desert, or actually it was the stuffing that was as dry as the desert. And thank
It's hard
God.
to get right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, what?
It's hard to get right. The
It's hard to
turkey.
get right.
Yeah, I mean, it's either pink and people are freaking out, or it's a little dry. You know, there's that moment of zen that you try to reach, but not everybody can do it. This year, I thought we reached the moment.
Okay,
was the turkey.
I got two words for that: oven bag. Oven bag. You know, just you put the bird in the bag and you tie the bag up and then you cook it and it keeps all the juices in. It's a thing of beauty. Also, a couple of lemons in the cavity.
We barbecue our turkeys.
Ooh,
The only way to go. Well, I'll show it to you, Samir.
all right.
Anyway, action-packed week. Stuff happened today. There was a report that Netflix has deemed a antitrust concern by the White House because they would consolidate too much Hollywood control in the eyes of Donald Trump and company, which kind of seems pretty powerful too. I don't. So does Paramount. I don't know how.
So does yeah, like YouTube. I was like, come on, you pick your poison at a certain point. I mean, it's like, okay. I mean, they're all trying to get bigger. I mean, what's the vision if that's an antitrust concern? They don't have any broadcast outlets. They don't have any cable networks, and apparently don't want the cable networks. They would just have some production studios and more of HBO Max, and I guess HBO, but whatever. I mean, it's interesting.
That emerged from Richard Greenfield. He was on, I think, CNBC last week talking about. It's been viewed as a slam dunk for the Team Ellison and Paramount, but
right, it's great. That's what Laura Martin was saying we quoted last week.
The states will have a say in this, specifically California and New York, which are big production states. They've influenced other mergers, such as the $26 billion T-Mobile Sprint acquisition. It held it up for a couple of years.
Billion. You keep going million. It's like you got this Dr. Evil impulse that we need to control, because you keep saying $26 million. No, it's billion.
You're right. But it just seemed like such a bargain. You know, it created so many jobs and value for all of us.
It really worked out.
There are fewer jobs today than when the deal was proposed in 2018. So in terms of the combined companies, so take that for what it's worth. But Greenfield didn't see it as a foregone conclusion that the Ellisons would get it. Reading your writing this week, I kind of feel like it's going to them.
Yeah, Look, if you can keep throwing up excuses, we don't want them to do it because they're too liberal or they have DEI policies. We can't regulate them in other ways, but we can kind of make up a specious antitrust concern, even though they would have with this probably about what 14% of the hours viewed, something like that. If they're like at 10%, according to Nielsen, and HBO Max is like 3%. It's on streaming side, and they wouldn't have anything on broadcast. Obviously, they wouldn't have anything notable really on cable because premium cable has tiny numbers in terms of the audiences. Even when they're big hits, they're relatively small numbers. There's lots of options to get your stuff elsewhere. I think that's a pretty tough case to make. I do think you're right, though, or Greenfield was right about this potential for the states to mess with things. The attorneys general in several states have been very active, some against causes they see as overly conservative and some that they see as overly liberal. I mean, if it's the concern that you just mentioned about Netflix, you could see, I don't know, what's his name, Greg Abbott, Texas Attorney General, weighing in, or a bunch of little states like my home state, Missouri, saying, oh, no, we don't want those people getting it.
Well,
And then it becomes a sort of a war of attrition in the courts, right?
so I'll just qualify this with saying the New York Post is the only place I saw this.
So it's what Rupert said. It's really what Rupert said.
Right, but for this to originate this early in the process, a bid hasn't been accepted. There isn't a deal yet
Right.
for them to weigh in. I mean, I don't remember seeing this when Comcast bought Time Warner or Warner Brothers Cable a few years ago. That was a big deal. Everybody in Telecom hated it. 10 years ago, deal that went nowhere. How often does that happen in big bidding situations that the president weighs in right off the bat? It seems a little interesting to me.
It's a little preemptive. It's definitely, I wouldn't call it a trial balloon, but a trial shooting down of a balloon. How's that? Yes, it is. What ends up happening because Trump inserts himself in so many different things is you end up having to say, well, even though he has no business getting into this question or that question, he thinks everything is his business and nothing is his business. If it goes wrong, it's somebody else's fault. I still think it's going to go Ellison's way. It just seems unlikely otherwise. But the real question that I thought was kind of interesting, raised by Laura Martin and Dan Medina over at Needham, was that these guys overplay their hands because they said to everybody, oh, thanks for your first round of bids, not enough money. We need you to come back with more. Come back this week. Don't care if you have Thanksgiving. We got to make decisions. So we need you guys to come back with bigger bids.
Bid
And
against
that's,
yourself.
yeah, bid against yourself for more, even though it's impossible to value this company with all these deteriorating assets, as they also pointed out. I mean, not a single chunk of Warner Brothers is really growing, right? And you want us to spend $70 billion on this thing when you guys
Well,
spent, it's
that
crazy.
with the $2.99 a month for 12 months Black Friday deal for HBO Max that they're talking right now, they might grow to a subscriber level. That's a really good deal. I think I might take them up on that.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
mean, look, it's a good service. I don't doubt that at all. 125 million or something like that worldwide. That's a nice sized operation. It's a little more than a third, roughly, of what Netflix has now. It's certainly about 3 times what Peacock is over at Comcast. I don't. Okay, so when you combine them, you don't get X plus Y equals Z. You get X plus Y equals 70% of Z, right? Because of overlap. I mean, everybody's got HBO Max, almost certainly has Netflix. And if you got Peacock, well, you're a part of a select few, but you almost certainly have maybe both of those other ones, and you're just an inveterate joiner. So,
right. The math on that is hard to figure out, but
right.
it's more scale, but it's still not enough scale. So it's expensive, and you're not there yet.
Right. Now, the
What
other
do you?
thing that it's interesting though that it gets lost is like, yes, Don Trump is weighing in on this. Netflix is a global company. A whole bunch of its subscribers, the majority of its subscribers, are in other places. HBO Max absolutely is majority international at this point, 125 million in 100 countries, though it's probably a plurality of its subscribers come from here. So does the UK weigh in? Does EU, hello, weigh in? Or I don't know, the Korean government, Japanese government, those guys, and say anything? It's another thing that kind of gets lost in all this. So,
Yeah, it gets complicated. What do you think of this Brian Roberts $27 a share deal that got reported also by the Post last week that
right.
he's considering his?
Well, until he's done it, he hasn't done it. But sometimes that is, you look at something like that. You've been a journalist for a long time, and I see things like that. I go, okay, so who gave them that for what purpose? Is that to, Roberts famously, when Fox was trying to sell itself and Disney was bidding, Roberts came in at the last-ish sort of moment and bid up the cost of things for Disney. And you could argue that something like this is him bidding up the cost for a competitor, and then he walks away and says, I'm going to go to a Flyers game, that kind of thing. So not a 76ers game. That wouldn't be fun. But seriously, you think about, okay, why would that information get out unless it was intended to get out for some purpose? You sit here and start playing, game theory and stuff like that. I'm kind of wondering if he doesn't think he can actually get it, but he can bid up somebody else and put them over a barrel and then maybe pick up some stuff at a bargain or whatever. That's a possibility. That's how I read it.
Goes on and on. At some point, it will be over.
Yeah. Well, for now. I mean, look, this will be the fourth Warner Brothers deal in this century. That's basically one every 6 years. So it'll be over until 2031.
So the Sinclair
David Bloom gets to stick around, so
big slam dunk, which was Sinclair Nexstar owning all of every broadcast affiliate in the country, seems to have hit some challenges. This week, Sinclair made a bid to expand its ownership of EW Scripps. It already owns 10%, as you pointed out, and it wants to own more. And it sees a way to expand its ownership without necessarily running into the 39% FCC ownership cap.
Right. Maybe.
Which Brendan Carr, chairman of the FCC, has already committed to either deleting or vastly loosening. Nexstar.
But I don't think Brendan's going to necessarily be able to, because all of a sudden somebody has an opinion. Somebody told somebody something, and somebody who happens to be president said, "Oh, we shouldn't do that because."
Let me get this out. So Nexstar wants to buy Tegna. It's already a couple months.
3.6 billion or something like that.
Right. And it does need that cap either deleted or loosened. And Chris Ruddy, who's a former Washington conservative think tanker turned media captain, is the CEO of Newsmax.
Is he a captain? Hey, Dan, is he a captain or more like, I don't know,
general, whatever you want to call it?
Second lieutenant, maybe.
Newsmax, and he sees the threat of Nexstar or Sinclair, both expanding their local news into sort of a conservative behemoth that is almost national as a competitive threat. So while Brendan Carr sucks up to Trump on one level, saying a loosened ownership cap will allow Sinclair and Nexstar to compete with big tech and the woke broadcast networks and others, Ruddy is working from another angle, saying, "Hey, listen, if you open that cap up, what you're going to get is an emboldened ABC and NBC, which are, as we know, woke." He basically put the right trinkets in front of Trump, and Trump had responded through Truth Social, saying, "Hey, we can't have that. We want to make them smaller."
But the reality is, actually, though, yes, you're right. He dangled the right, oh my God thing in front of our only president. But the ones that everybody expects would have a shot are Fox and CBS now that it's under the Ellison hand. So CBS would get big. Fox doesn't really have that many O&Os, owned and operated stations, which I was a little surprised by. Like the other ones have like 25, 30, something like that. And they've got like 9. So depending on what Rupert and Lachlan want to do, I mean, I don't think that's a big deal for Rupert, but they're going shopping.
The bottom line is you've got the uncertain future for the slam dunk, which was the easing
Right.
of the cap. At the same time, Sinclair is trying to buy Scripps and is being blocked. The Script guys enacted the shareholders' rights strategy, which is basically called the poison pill. The existing shareholders are given the right to buy the stock at discount, potentially greatly diluting Sinclair's stake and making an unprofitable purchase.
Right. But there's something like 77 Scripps heirs that have an opinion and a stake. So
they're not saying they're not going to do it. They're just saying they want to mull it over. They want time to do
right.
it.
Well, but the problem is getting some agreement apparently from this just vast herd of third generation pinheads. And I say this as someone who started his career with the Scripps Howard newspaper chain, which hired me and 6 months later killed the paper I was working for, apparently having decided, oh, we don't really want to hire him or anybody else working there now. You know, it's like, you could have told me this so I could have had one of 5 other job opportunities. Thanks, guys. So Scripps a bunch of heads.
Not a lot of decision making. I get it.
Yeah.
So
class guys.
The only point I'm making is this isn't going to be as easy as we thought it was.
Well, it never is, but it even more never is with a kibitzing president who's easily swayed by whoever stopped by to see the construction of the new ballroom that day. But it is an interesting thing to think about. Media realignment isn't quite as simple as it appears. It will clunk along, but stuff's going to happen.
I just can't believe you wear the man's bust on your lapel. You suck up in ways that you can't ever walk away from. I mean, Brendan Carr, it's cast in stone. But at the end of the day, he sides with one of his buddies. That's Trump. You know, I guess he's known Ruddy for a while, and they're considered friends. So,
sure. They run in the same crowds. Yeah.
Another object lesson in obsequience to the president. So.
Right. Well, there is that, you know, and I think it looks like Barry Weiss, who just, sold her little free press for not free amounts of money, $150 million, to Ellison to be crowned editor-in-chief of a broadcast operation. And she wants to bring in people like Bret Baier from Fox News and some other folks to kind of make them do that thing that kind of CBS has been doing, but some vaguely less woke way.
The Jewish Federation a few weeks ago, and she talked about, I don't know what she thought CBS News was before. I watched 60 Minutes, and it seemed like a pretty strident, straight-ahead news organization.
Right.
And if it reported that the Cleveland Browns weren't a very good football team, it was because they weren't very good. And if it reported this administration has problems, that's just the way it just felt. It just felt like they were straight shooters. And you may not want to hear it, but I never thought they were woke or propaganda. And Barry Weiss is going to return them to this sort of straight ahead news organization that tells you where to send your kids to school, gives you information on who to vote for. That's what she's working on. And she's just full of shit. She doesn't she has like 5 different kind of narratives that she spews over and over about woke college campuses and news media, etc. And I like what the guy in the New Republic said. She's kind of boring. And on top of that, it doesn't seem to be kind of changing the perception of the channel in the eyes of the president. He's got this new mechanism, this new webpage. I don't know if you saw this, the media offenders
page. A new
page.
cudgel, I think is the way to call it. A new cudgel to beat reporters and journalists over the head with.
Right. And they have the media offender of the week, the most woke, out of line fake news outlet, and CBS is on that list this week. And like you said, Jim Acosta was on, was it MS Now? What used to be MSNBC?
M Snow. I prefer to call it M Snow.
Trump really is good at finding ways to beat up the news media and control
everybody else too. Yeah, he there's all those little levers, and they haven't been abused much. Some. But he's like, oh, let's pull that one. Let's pull that one. Let's pull that one. Click, 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 click. He's like a slate voter. He like pulls all the levers that cause problems. So for whoever's on the wrong side of him that minute. And now Barry Weiss, an offender of the week.
I mean,
And a boring offender. That's even worse. She's a boring, apparently, a boring pundit offender of the week.
we'll see. Time will tell. I mean, it does seem like he mentions when he talks about the fake news broadcast media, he talks about ABC and NBC and doesn't mention CBS enough as much as he used to. But
Right.
maybe he's just keeping them on watch. I don't know.
No, they're definitely on. They're on a strict watch. There's no doubt about that. Things that are not dead, apparently. Speaking of things media organizations you loved to beat up on for years in your career, regional sports networks, not dead yet, in the immortal words of Monty Python's plague victim, but they actually are showing some signs of life amid. I mean, SVOD subscription video is getting lots of competition, but it's still growing year over year. Last year, this year, the first half of each year is up like double digits, not just for subscription video, which is the lion's share of it, but some of these smaller organizations. And I'll be interested to see what happens with ESPN and Fox's one app for to rule them all for all Fox stuff.
Well, I both got into this Antenna, the research company Antenna. They released some data on subscription sports streaming, and they put out one graph that showed that signups, independent of traditional linear cable, for regional sports networks, for Nesson, for a few others. I can't remember which ones, but these were ostensibly, if it's not through cable or satellite, it's for the DTC version. And they were up like 46% year over year.
Yeah, the only question is what's the base. So like if I'm up 36%, but I only got I don't know, 100 subs and now I have 134. I'm up 34%. That looks pretty good, except I only have 134 subscribers. I'm going out of business next week. Right?
Yeah.
So we'll find out how
Yep.
sustainable these things are.
But growth is growth, so that's sort of interesting. I did talk to separately for another project. I talked to folks at Ness, and they were, Harmonic vendor for video technology, had them hawking the new system they installed. And it does seem like they've made some major investments in their DTC product, which was kind of bad, I think, when it debuted. I don't think the consumer satisfaction was very high for it. And it's like they're doing much better these days. We've got a handle on it.
Well, that's good. Now all they need is a decent hockey and baseball team. They'll be rolling, right? Bruins and the Bo Sox gotta get their acts together.
I haven't looked at the hockey standings lately. I'm assuming the Bruins have been
They haven't
good.
been as strong in recent years. They had a great run back in the day when they were made the playoffs like 25 straight years. It was kind of like a Spurs of the NHL kind of thing, but less consistent these days. But, if you're a sports regional network, you need to have teams that are consistent, that are kind of in the hunt. Maybe they don't get there every year, but they kind of need to be. Otherwise, it starts to get ugly. The fact that this stuff is back, it's like, okay, babe, like let's see how it rolls in direct to consumer, because if you're doing DTC, it's going to be at an elevated price, right? It's going to be 20, 30 bucks probably for Nesson or one of these guys. You're not going to get it for $3. It's definitely an expensive addiction. So speaking of which, Netflix now has.
Well, let me get one thing out because it's in our headline. Make sure in that same Antenna study, they say that subscriptions for NFL Sunday Ticket are up 37% September to September, which I find striking. I guess Google is getting some traction, learning how to market the thing. I know we get a lot of emails, my son and I, for YouTube TV, because that's kind of where it's based, to sign up at this prorated rate. There's like 7 weeks left in the regular season. Get it for $62. Which my son.
Yeah, they're making a big push. They've got a Jason Kelsey ad, of course, of him going in some sort of lab, and he hasn't stopped going since he was told that the remaining few weeks of the regular season are $48 or whatever the price is. So,
didn't anybody ever tell Ron Gronkowski, or was it Billy Bob Gronkowski? I forget. The former
Billy Bob Gronkowski would be T-Mobile's dream spokesman.
He is like, it seemed like he had that role for years. A big lug. I guess he has
Yeah.
He's still doing it for USAA Insurance, but it seems like Kelsey's sort of taken some of his thunder.
He has more available time, I think. But yes, you're right. They've definitely horned in on the Manning land of endless corporate endorsements. Not quite at Eli and Peyton's level and Cooper's level, and soon Arch Manning's level.
Patrick Mahomes, he's already done it. He's playing.
Yeah, I mean Mahomes and brother Travis Kelsey obviously have done a lot for the State Farm. These guys works for works for the advertisers, I guess. Lovable lugs, just like you and me. We're lovable lugs. Well,
Yeah, it's my agent says any day now, so we'll hang in there.
any day now. Yeah, I'm thinking of the Buddy Holly song. I'm not not thinking it's going to happen. I did want to go back though to Champagne Problems and Caviar
Netflix, of
Dreams
course.
at
Please.
Netflix. So turns out the number one global movie for Netflix this last week going into Thanksgiving weekend was Champagne Problems, a sometimes French, set in France, rom-com set around the holidays, pretty standard kind of setup in a lot of ways. Woman sent from her company in America to France to try to talk this owner of this champagne house into selling his company to their company, so they have secret plans to do terrible things to it and part it all
Question.
out.
She's not looking for love at this point, though, is she?
She is not looking for love. She is not looking for love, but she shows up in France and things happen in Paris. This is one of the
Man.
joys of Paris. You find a handsome stranger, you have a night of passion and connection, and lo and behold, the bastard's related to the owner of the champagne house. Who saw that
Oh,
coming?
what? How does that happen?
What? No, it's not possible.
What is the Mark Wahlberg spy? It's not a franchise because they did 2 years of it.
Family
Yeah,
Plan
we
2.
watched the second
Yeah,
installment
yeah.
last night. And I gotta say, for paint by numbers, SVOD movies themed around the holidays, not bad.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Well, it is literally paint by numbers when they put in the Family Plan 2 in the name. So let's paint this one in, and they painted it in. My real point about Netflix doing this is that they have now kind of figured out how to do a whole wad of these holiday rom-coms that they just keep throwing at people, just like Hallmark has been doing for what, 30 years? And they got a whole lot more reach than Hallmark does. Same with, I guess, Lifetime has got some of that too, but neither one of them have. I mean, I think Hallmark lives and dies based on its holiday rom com season. That really is their thing for a
A
whole
lot of
lot.
competition that's coming from a number of different places, but Netflix seems to be, as you point out, the most formidable location right now. I
Yeah.
thought it was interesting that they're still formidable even after losing their star, Lindsay Lohan, who is, I guess, retired from the format after doing 3 straight years of holiday movies for Netflix.
Well, she was suffering from overexposure to fake Christmas trees and fake snow, and it was really causing hives. So she had to retire for her health. It's
Yeah.
just a terrible story. It's just terrible. So
I hope it's
we
better.
wish her the best as she moves into, I don't know, the Taylor Sheridan verse or something. I'm sure there's going to be 2 or 3 shows she can be like, a horse breaking cowgirl slash attorney ballbuster or something. That'll be her role. I'm just guessing. But
She'll be back. She'll be back.
Lindsay will be back. She has been through way more than you and I combined, and she's a tough cookie, a survivor with a capital S. So you go with it, girl. We'll see what you do. You did mention, and this I made a little fun of it in the intro, but it's kind of serious and weird. There's a lawsuit by a father who lost his 16-year-old son to suicide after the father's lawsuit claims the boy collaborated with ChatGPT to figure out the means of his own demise. And uh, OpenAI, he violated terms of service for asking how to kill himself and having to get ChatGPT to go along. It's like, I don't know how that's
You
going to
know,
work.
I once had a lawyer tell me that Sunday night was the worst night of his week, that just dreaded his job. and that he chose badly. And he lived in a really nice house and drove a really nice car. And that stuck with me because I kind of, second guessed the law school choice at some point. I'm sure not all of the legal profession is this arduous, but that's got to be a tough job to come up with court orders like that.
Right.
Just,
Oh, you're trying to get a $500 billion valuation. Got 800 million. I mean, admittedly, they're losing a lot of money. And also racking up, and we'll get to this in a minute, racking up some pretty substantial electrical power bills. But this is the kind of thing that just looks bad. It looks like it's like a Zuckerberg level of stick your foot in your mouth kind of, tin ear to how this stuff looks to normal human beings. And Sam's good for a lot of things, but I don't think that empathy gene made it to any of these schmucks.
empathy. The AI journaling app Rosebud tested 25 AI models, a lot from the same vendors, to find out which one at a time where folks are concerned about LLMs and how they respond to users in trouble, scored them on their empathy. And Google Gemini tested highest by a bullet. At the bottom was OpenAI.
I don't think you should say by a bullet given
wrong.
suicide. This might not be
by a lot. By a lot.
By a lot. Yes, a lot. I'm just saying, you don't want to suggest anything to the AI guys, whatever.
Yeah,
It's
we
like
OS.
Google's on a roll. I don't know if people notice this. Their latest version of Gemini came out and did really well in all the different tests that are done to measure these things against each other in terms of accuracy and all the rest. Google's kind of on a roll. Its shares have gone up a lot in the last 2 weeks. And it's interesting to watch because everybody was pretty sure this time last year that Google was going to have to close down because the thing that made it all its money was search. Search was going to be blown out by ChatGPT and other agentic AI tools that would go figure the answer out for you and not actually show you any ads, which is what makes most of the 100 billion or whatever Google makes every hour, and it would be dead. And in fact, what it looks like is not dead. It's even more not dead than regional sports network.
Yeah, where's their market cap now? Do you know? It was 3.1 trillion.
It's over 3. It's over 3. I mean, Apple's over 4, and Nvidia was over 5. They've had a pullback because, among other things, Alphabet is making some of its own chips. And I think they're making them with Broadcom and some of the other things. But it's really interesting to see some of that as the market tries to figure out. I mean, it's pretty remarkable, some of the valuations, to put it mildly. In fact, I will tell you that right now, Google's market cap is $3.87 trillion. So nearly 4. Apple has gone down a little bit and it is at 4.12. So it's about $250 billion ahead, which is about nothing. I would be okay with $250 billion. Just saying.
That is extraordinary. When was Alphabet third quarter earnings? That was like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. They came out pretty much all in the same week, except for Nvidia.
$700 million worth, or $700 billion with a B, like you said, of wealth got created in less than a month. That's just staggering.
Speaking of Dr. Evil, yeah. In the last month, they are up 17%, $46 per share to $316. So that's from $270. Yeah, that adds up. That adds up a lot. Lots of dough. And they haven't got any. They're not any better on empathy. I know they're better than everybody else, but this is like asking a bunch of robots, can you feel a little more human? Sure, we'll program that in.
I remember a couple of rough moments over the course of a 25-year marriage where Vivian was down and the only thing that would pick her up was a Rush Hour movie. It's one of my wife's favorite cinematic franchises.
That is a serious level of depression. That is a serious level of depression.
That, affordability, which is not his fault. It was like that when he got here. It is getting us down. Inflation caused by Biden and not him is a problem. And he wants us to drown our sorrows in a Brett Ratner fourth installment of Rush Hour. That's what I read.
That is indeed something the president has sought, and Ellison is ever eager to do low-cost ways to make the president happy. So one was letting the Colbert contract run out next spring along with the show and save $40 million he could spend on something else. And this is another one. You know, when he's going to spend, he'll spend big, but he won't need to spend big on this one. I mean, what do you figure? $70 million, you throw it out there, maybe you sell it, whatever. I'm going to guess the president's not a good studio executive, though, I'm guessing.
So, I mean, given that it was sort of a handshake between East and West, you had a star of the Far East, Mr. Chan, with Chris Tucker.
Yeah.
Kind of the peanut butter and chocolate mix that was so incendiary and worked so well. Who do you get now for this modern retake on an action comedy movie classic? I don't know.
Yeah, Chris Tucker's still around. Chan is was a phenomenal actor. I recommend some of his shows like Police Story and Police Story 2, movies that were just great.
I'm being glib. I thought those movies were actually pretty good.
Yeah,
I enjoyed them.
Super Cop was really good. But the really harrowing thing about Chan was they would show the outtakes because he did all his own stuff and he broke literally like nearly every bone in his body at one point or another. And they would show these outtakes of things where the stunts didn't go so well. And you're like, how is this guy still alive? And so I'm thinking at this point, he's probably not able to move in quite the same graceful way that characterized so much of his work, fine work in Rush Hour and everything else. So who would it be? I mean, look, there's a half the cast of Crazy Rich Asians you could enlist because there was a bunch of really terrific people there. You know, Bowen Yang. Hey, Bowen Yang, right?
Well, I just think it's odd that a man who refers to China kind of pejoratively,
yeah, right,
is trying to think
Hong
of new
Kong was different. Hong Kong was totally different. Oh yeah,
but
it's technically part of China
it's
now.
an oldster. He talks about an enticing consumer product, movies that were kind of maybe too flippant for a lot of things that we're sensitive about right now, and cast men as simple heroic roles that were just 20 years ago. And you see that, and I gotta say, wow, that was cool. I may have
right.
But I'm
there's
wow.
a lot of franchises that did not age well. There's no doubt about that. Finally, we should wrap this up. We're getting there. We were talking about OpenAI, and it is one of the companies racking up the big power bill, not just in DC, but actually getting electricity to run servers, to do all the hard thinking. And that may be the next thing that's going to make people really upset. It used to be eggs. Now it's going to be that power bill.
That was the New York Times headline. The
Yeah.
new eggs is
new eggs. Yeah. I think it's extraordinary.
And the hyperscalers want to turn to this sort of like small little nuclear power devices.
Yep.
Sure, nuclear
Small,
power.
they're not miniature, but they're modular. You can replicate them. You can add them, build them pretty quickly, stack them up on a fairly good size.
Small modular reactors, SMRs are called.
Yeah.
But in reality, there's no proof that these even work. It's never been executed. It's never been done. So there's no proof.
I'll tell you that all of this is fascinating, the revival of nuclear power. I spent a significant amount of time relatively early in my career in Texas writing about the disposal of nuclear waste and the government's effort to find a final repository for the entire nation's high-level radioactive waste from its 88 or so old school reactors of that era. And that was back in the mid-'80s. I led my newspaper's investigative team on this, and we won awards for it and got a lot of notice for it, for what it was, given the size of the publication. And I got to learn a whole lot about radiation disposal, and all the rest. And the problem is we still haven't solved that problem. We still aren't really figuring out where we're going to put all the stuff that comes after you create the power. There is a still not final, not fully operational. It has been a demonstration site. It's not It's
God.
been the source of, you think there's a lot of lawsuits and disagreements about like which of the Scripps heirs are going to agree to get bought by Sinclair. This has been a brawl for now 4.5
Transport
decades.
country on railroad tracks. The thought of a cataclysmic accident.
Right. The
In
occasional, and I've covered a few train wrecks too. I mean, not just my own emotional train wrecks, but actual physical train wreck. And let me tell you, they make a mess of things when a few hundred tons of stuff barreling along at 40 or 50 miles an hour loses it. It's not pretty. If you've got radiation, it's less pretty. Man, just go back to that Ohio chemical spill and you can get an idea. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that hasn't been really figured out. They've got stopgap responses. Small modular reactors is an interesting approach. You still got to figure out what you're going to do with this stuff, and that is only part of the solution, not yet in place anywhere. Probably works, but that doesn't fix everything, and you've got way more projected demand based on all these buildings that are going to get built for billions of dollars in towns that are increasingly going, well, wait a minute, there's no jobs there after you build it. It just sort of runs by itself. It's kind of self-contained, and there's a couple of guards with machine guns, and that's kind of it, right? And there's like maybe a plumber or something. But there's not a big economic boost after the building gets built. And the buildings aren't that sophisticated.
go deep.
Cooling.
It's like just like burying radiation. You can always go deep. So
Yeah.
I think we've plundered the half-life on this particular turkey and given our readers a tryptophan nap that they so sorely deserve on Monday morning.
Are you saying we should cesium and desist?
Exactly. Not bad.
I thought that was pretty good. Just bury him with me and Granner.
All right. You've linked them up pretty well.
All right. So anyway, this is David Bloom, Next TMT, and this here Next TMT Talks with Dan Frankel. You can subscribe to our weekly newsletter. It's free at nexttmt.com.
Like and subscribe. We should say that more.
Like and subscribe. Yeah, share like crazy. Also, this here podcast is available both in video and audio form and all the appropriate places: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and all the other usual suspects. And I know we're hilarious, so keep listening. We love you. Thank you. Let us know if you have anything you want us to dive into. And until next week, happy Thanksgiving post. I hope you have digested everything and are ready to get on past your shopping and into holidaying and serious. Anyway, thanks everybody.